Hey guys, as you guys know, Russia has invaded Ukraine. And because of that, we're likely to see more cyber attacks coming from Russia. So let's get into it. Our threat team has come out with a threat briefing around Russian cyber attacks. If you hit the overview page, you can see in the threat briefings here, that should be in your ExtraHop RevealX 360 instances. And you're able to see common attack techniques, remote services, all the IOCs that are basically been seen or used by Russian state-sponsored APT actors. So this is really helpful to summarize what's been out there from a IOC's perspective, from the types of attacks they use. And so you can go through each of these and click on it and learn more about them. You can actually see the detections fire in your environment. So you really want to take care of those, especially in this heightened environment. We reference a couple of really good documents. The Shields Up guidance is really good stuff. I'm usually not a huge fan of the stuff that is released by the federal government, but this stuff is pretty clear and succinct on the things you should be doing. And if you have been putting it off or, hey, maybe I'll do that at some point, I want to get to it. Now is the time to really seriously consider going through this and making the time. So what does that look like? So on the Shields Up guidance, I've kind of highlighted some key things that ExtraHop's really good at. Disabling ports and protocols for non-essential purposes. I don't know how many times that I've seen, telnet ports, SMB ports, RDP ports that are being open to people they shouldn't. So that allows state-sponsored actors to be able to leverage that as a point of attack. So unusual network behavior, that's what we do. So it's really important to start to pay attention to our detections and to use our threat investigations to understand what's happening. And we go above logging and use network packets. And then obviously always test your backup procedures. And then in the guide here, it goes into more details. So the stop ransomware, which that's referenced there, is on the csi.gov site. There's some really key things here that they've updated in this heightened environment. So internet facing vulnerabilities and misconfigurations. Where does ExtraHop kind of play into this? So the first thing is RDP is a known transmission and a known misconfiguration. So you really be careful with RDP and make sure that you're blocking that at the very least on internet facing, and then really locking that down with multi-factor authentication and ensuring you're not making it easy. ExtraHop looks for RDP transactions that are unusual, and we're going to look for RDP transactions to routable IP addresses. So it's talking about auditing RDP ports, ensuring account lockout specific number of tens. Those are all things that ExtraHop looks for. Disable or block SMB protocols. That's Windows file share. That's how ransomware is typically propagated. So basically, you want to make sure that at the very least, we're blocking the SMB port. And it's really cool that they call this out. This has been a strength for ExtraHop for a long time. Disable SMB1 and V2. If you have SMB V1 and V2 in critical applications, you're asking to get hit by ransomware. These are ancient protocols. You need to be on at least V2 or V3. That makes it much harder to be able to infect with ransomware because of the authentication around it. And it's a much more intelligent-based protocol. So, and then you say block all versions of SMB being accessible from outside your network. So that's something that we can look for. Where do you have SMB? What files are those? Because we're able to see inside those layer 7 transactions, we can look inside SMB and CIFS transaction. Phishing, we're really good at understanding, with the proxy shell and other things where that's happening. But phishing, you really need to focus on, of course. Infection vector, precursor malware infection. This is really the mid game that we always talk about. I've got lots of videos on the mid game. So previous evidence of previous unresolved network compromise. So looking for ways to get into your infrastructure and lay dormant, whether that's through malware or phishing or open RDP port. So the ransomware is that last step. The mid game is where you really need to start to pay attention to say, hey, I start to notice that I'm getting scanned with Bloodhound, or there's Mimikatz being used, or there's a TCP SYN scan trying to inventory my environment. Detecting command and control activity, another potentially malicious network activity. That cyber threat briefing does that. And then we're also looking for that actively within ExtraHop. So when you see Cobalt Strike, when you see command and control, make sure you're taking a look and see what it is and what it's doing. In this heightened environment, it's extremely important. I thought this was interesting. They actually call out MSPs. Like MSPs are great, not knocking them, but you have to be really careful. MSPs have been a third-party infection vector for quite a while now. Not a lot of people talk about it, but it's something that you need to be really aware of. If you're saying, hey, my MSP's got me, you might want to rethink it. Time and time again, we've seen the MSPs get infected, and these are prime targets for Russian state-sponsored actors, because if they can get inside the MSP, they can infect every single one of their clients. And so it's something you really want to be aware of and ensure that you got the right SLAs and the communication with your MSP provider. Cool. Asset management is big. So we do out-of-band understanding of every single device in your infrastructure, whether it's an IoT device, an old Sun system, can't have logs on it, you can't put CrowdStrike on it. We can still discover it. And so understanding, letting ExtraHop discover it, and that communicating with your CMDB tool or having that be a part of your audit is really important, because if it transacts on the network, we can see it. Restricting usage of PowerShell is huge. A lot of times when they move laterally in your environment or attacks happen, they're going to leverage some version of PowerShell. So locking that down and really restricting usage of PowerShell is important to keeping yourself really secure. So access to DC should be restricted to administrators group. So make sure that only people accessing DCs are the people it should be. And we have detections around DC sync and other things that are accessing DCs. And so you can audit that using the ExtraHop detections. SMB signing, I talked about that with V3 so that you can really understand. That's where the ransomware is going to happen. So do everything you can within your power without breaking your applications to ensure that SMB is up to snuff. So baseline and analyze network activity over a period of months to determine behavioral patterns so that they are normal. They're basically making the case for ExtraHop right now. We are skating to the puck where the puck's going at this point. And basically the CISA just made a case for ExtraHop. So we do anomalous network behavior. We've been doing network performance for years. We have the best data in the industry. So use that to understand when you're having anomalies and spend more time in it than you normally would. Leverage this with your executive staff to say, hey, this is the time that we need to spend time and resources to get better at these things. I know human capital is at a limit right now, but in this heightened environment, it's important for us to pay attention to these precursors of an attack. I hope this was helpful, guys. Stay safe. Thanks.